Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Last Call podcast. Yes, we have finally arrived at the Rise of Skywalker. If you haven't been following us along since February, we have been going over every single Star Wars film in chronological order leading up to today, release day, worldwide release day, I guess, for the Rise of Skywalker. Preview night was last night, and everybody that is involved in this has seen it either a little early because they're cheaters, some people, or saw it last night with preview night. I am, of course, as always, joined by my co-host, Cam Clark. Cam, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, not too bad. Yep. Yourself?
Good stuff, man. Well, I'm doing all right. I'm ready to talk about this. Why don't you introduce the rest of our
Motley
Motley
crew, I'll say.
Yeah, there you go.
So we have various former guests from Last Call podcast on here. We have Brian Brantley, who's joined us before. We have Joseph Jammer Medina, editor-in-chief of LRM Online, who's joined us on some. Nick Dahl, who's joined us on a few of these Last Call podcasts. And we have indie filmmaker James Burns on as well, who actually hasn't done one of the Last Call podcasts with us before, but is, well, what a time to be your first, James. So, how's everyone doing?
Doing great. Ready to talk about a Star War.
A Star War.
A war in the stars. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being a part of the show. Nick was with us for episodes 1 and 4.
Solo.
Yeah, and Solo. Yep. Brian joined us for episodes 2 and 6, and Jammer joined us for episodes 5 and 8. James came into the show late, and all of the movies had already been slotted with the third wheel. But welcome to the Last Call podcast for the end of it all, man. I appreciate you being here, James. Fox Troilo couldn't join us. James was quick to jump on the gun and say he wanted to be a part of it. So thank you, James.
Appreciate it.
So everybody that has listened to this podcast before knows we have a few questions that we like to ask before we get into the movie in detail. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. And we'll go in the order that we talked about. So pretty much what I want to know, guys, is what was your excitement level for the film before the first reviews and reactions hit? And did those reviews and actions raise or lower your excitement level? For me, I've been scared of this movie since it was announced, basically. Well, since the end of The Last Jedi, I should say. I've been afraid as news came out of characters that they were adding, and I was always afraid that this would be too full of a film, like not enough time and too much story, trying to wrap up too many things. And when those first reviews came out, man, it really lowered my excitement, because that's what I was reading. I was reading that exactly what I was fearing was going to happen. Brian, what did you think?
Basically the same as you. I was concerned going into it. Pretty much everything you just said. I mean, we've talked about it several times. That was JJ going to try and I don't want to say erase, but do his own take on what 8 would have been had he done it. Mm-hmm. So I was concerned about that. And then when the reviews hit, I was like, okay. Yeah. So.
Okay. Cool. James?
Well, I hate to be that guy, but I called him. I said between 50 and 60%.
Oh,
can you guys hear me still?
You mean on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah.
Oh.
So 50 to 60% was my kind of prediction, so it made sense.
Very cool. Jammer, what'd you think?
I was I try not to go in with many expectations because, you know, the last couple movies I've seen before most people, so like didn't have any reviews to fall back on or to think about. And so and usually when it comes to Star Wars, I'm not the most excited to go in, but I'm usually pretty stoked coming out. At least that's been the case for, you know, ever since the Force Awakens. And I don't know, for some reason it's hard for me to get excited about it until I've actually seen it. So I was kind of going in just I hope I get taken for a good ride. I don't want to get too attached to any thoughts or perspectives or ideas I might have. So yeah, I was kind of feeling open to being wowed, but you know, not fully expecting it.
After seeing some of the early reactions, did that change your excitement level at all?
No, but I was more interested simply because I was curious as to what kind of movie it is that is likely getting this sort of response from critics, and I was wondering what fans would think about it, because fans and critics don't always align in their tastes. So I got more interested and intrigued from an analytical perspective, but it really didn't change anything I felt going into it.
What about you, Nick?
Oh, I feel dead inside. I mean, even before it came out, I was like, this is the first Star Wars movie I really don't give a shit
You
about.
were so bitchy going into it. You're like, oh, I'm going to have to see Star Wars. Oh, I'm a little bitch.
But what's remarkable is that you enjoyed The Last Jedi, so surely it was the initial reactions that made you feel like that, or else you would have been, no? Or
Well, it's
was
been
it
that
the
way since the first
trailers, or-
trailer. Yeah.
trailers.
And I think also you've been exhausted by fans to the point
yeah.
where you're like, fuck these movies because of the fans.
It's mostly that, where I'm like, I don't want to fucking discuss Star Wars anymore. They're always the same movie. Let's move on to Marvel or DC or something.
Alrighty, Cam, what's up?
For me, it's a little bit different because I've kind of put my hands up as being the spoiler boy in LRM for this movie. So I have been kind of keeping track of the leaks for this film, of which there are many, to the point where even before I had went to see the movie, which was earlier than most of you, yesterday on preview night as well, by the day the premiere had come out, there was already entire scenes on YouTube, like the entire opening was there was various important scenes from the end as well. Now, I didn't watch them, but I had kept up with the leaks up to that, so I kind of had an idea what was going to happen going in, and I always had to keep my tongue, you know, not talk to anyone about it. But I was worried right from the point I read the leaks, because it just felt like the direction that this movie was going to go in wasn't one that was going to work for me. So I probably went in with quite low expectations, I would have to say. And the feedback from having read some reviews, like Fox's review on the site, obviously Fox got to see it a little bit earlier than us. You know, I could totally appreciate what Fox was saying, and then after watching it, you're thinking, well, yeah, he was right. I actually agree.
He was pretty spot on, wasn't he?
Put on his review, yeah, absolutely. And then I read Giggs as well, which was a slightly different point of view, and I can totally see where Giggs is coming from as well. So I suppose that leads us on to what did we think immediately after watching it. So for myself, I kind of had an alright time at the movie for sort of 2.5 hours. I wasn't bored, which I was with The Last Jedi, but it didn't leave me with a feeling of a satisfying conclusion at the end of it. And when I came out, all I started thinking about was the various plot holes and problems that I had with the film. And even with The Last Jedi, I think coming out at first I was a bit like, oh, I'm on the fence, I don't know, I need to watch this again to kind of really get hold of it. Whereas this one, I kind of thought, I really don't need to watch this again. You know, I've seen it, it's what I expected it to be, and that's that basically. Brian, what were your immediate reactions after watching the film?
I had a really good time with it. I honestly quite enjoyed it. It is messy. It has a lot of problems, and my opinion might change after repeat viewings, but as it stands right now, flaws and all, I quite liked it.
Okay. And what about James? What did you think?
I enjoyed it too. For all its faults, I liked it, but I really like Star Wars.
Okay. Jammer.
So here's the deal. I think I would agree with you guys. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff that's just fun to watch in the moment. It's enjoyable. As you mentioned, it's not boring. I was entertained for most of it, though the third act for me was whoof. That was rough. But there's definitely a lot of times in it where I was thinking, oh god, this is some silly shit. But on the whole, I think I enjoyed it.
All right, and finally, Nick.
Well, these days I don't really get, like, Star Wars can basically do anything, and I might think a scene is weird or silly, but I don't really judge the movie for that. I don't judge it on my own expectations either. It's just, this one, I don't want to hate on it because I don't feel strong enough to hate on it, but I just feel like the way it's written, everything, it negates the entire trilogy, and I don't know. I don't see a reason to go back to any of the three ever again. Or share them with people because it's like, oh, okay, well, I've seen that trilogy twice. Sweet.
Yeah. And what about you, Kale?
I was burned out. I was tired. There was somebody I don't remember had reviewed the film and said that it was very draining, and I can agree with that. And I knew I enjoyed parts of it, and I knew there were some parts that we'll get into that I absolutely hated. And I did at one point look at my wife and say, should we walk out? Which we'll get into that, but yeah, just immediately very, very mixed for me. Very, very, very mixed. So, anybody have any last minute things before we get into
non-spoiler things?
I mean, I guess for me, yeah. I went out of it thinking like, oh, I had a good time in my gut, but that's it. Like, it had its strong moments, and I have a list of things that I enjoyed about it. But at the end of the day, like, it's, to me, this is definitely I think the weakest Disney movie has put out when it comes to Star Wars.
I'm definitely seeing it one more time.
Me too,
with my son Lucas. So Jam, you're seeing it again.
Probably,
Nick,
yeah.
Probably no. Probably yeah. No.
I might have to see it with my family or my friends. That I always commit to.
Are you gonna complain about it online? You're gonna be like, oh, I have to see Star Wars again.
No, I'd rather just not bring up those two words together anymore, unless I were talking about Disney Plus.
That's a good point.
James, do you plan on seeing it again?
Oh yeah, it's Star Wars.
Brian?
Yeah, next week sometime.
Next week. And Cam?
Eventually, yes, for academic purposes. Because I don't remember enough at the moment to really analyse the parts that worked and didn't work in the same level as I would a film that's been out for a while. So when we've done all these other films, we'll have watched them all multiple times. Even The Last Jedi, which I'd probably watched the least, that was still my third watch, where I was in the comfort of my home and able to take notes as I was going through it. Plus I had been writing and debating it with everyone for like 2 years up to that point anyway, so it was all very clear in my head. This one, I think after the fact you start to forget a few things, and I'm sure there'll be things that people bring up today that I'm like, oh yeah, that happened, yeah.
But probably not a theater viewing? No,
probably not. Unless, like, my sister says, like, will you go and see this with me because I've got no one to go and see it with, I'd go, yeah, okay. But that would be the only situation where I think I would go to the theatre to watch it again.
All right,
and you don't have to, because it's literally on YouTube.
Okay.
So.
Well, it's spoiler time,
so,
everyone. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to hear a more in-depth spoiler-free review, go check out this morning's LR Mornings, the 20th, Friday the 20th LR Mornings. Cam and I did a spoiler-free review, and of course, Fox Troilo's article, his write-up, is a spoiler-free review. if you haven't seen it yet and you're stopping here, make sure you mark the time, come back and finish the Last Call podcast so you can hear the 6 of us ridiculous people talking about this movie and hopefully doing it in as orderly a fashion as we have been so far.
Really quick, before we dig into it, I do want to say this, and I said this on the chat before, this movie is kind of exactly what I feared a sequel trilogy would be, with its constant references and pieces of fan service and all that stuff. Like, it felt like someone was just like, oh, we need to have this moment for the fans, and then this moment for the fans, and then this moment for the fans, and then this moment for the fans. And it just felt like something that was made to be as safe of a movie as possible. And yeah, that just felt safe. And from our reactions, I think that's generally, it kind of succeeded, because even though we're hypercritical of type of things, we're just like, yeah, I had a good time. Like, it had its problems, but on a moment-to-moment basis, I had fun watching it overall. And I think that's probably what they were going for, to be honest, because they didn't want another The Last Jedi.
Yeah. It was The Last Jedi haters' fault.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think they definitely did react to some of the backlash in that film. But maybe that's less a Disney thing and more that they hired J.J. Abrams and he wanted to go down certain ways. But there is a lot of things where, and we'll get to this, where they just seem to almost stick 2 fingers up at Rian Johnson. And even some of his comments since the film has been released about fan service, I kind of think is almost like a punch back from him. At the moment, to say, actually, you can't make a film that's just pure fan service, which this kind of is.
Yeah, and I just want to say to Jammer, who every time I said it on a podcast about it being too full, like too much in too short a time, I told you so. I told. No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
you were perfectly right in saying, but give it a chance. It might not be, but no.
Yeah, I was wrong.
I
was totally wrong. Like, they did exactly what we all feared they would be. And this is, like I said, this is when they said Disney was going to make another Star Wars movie back in 2012 or 2013. My biggest fear is like, oh, it's going to be a bunch of moments where you have Lando come in and laughing, being like, hey, I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad you called me, guys. And then you have a bunch of other moments where, oh, we're calling back to this. We're calling back to this. And literally these scenes are in a row. And I'm just like, oh, God, let it go. Come on, let's do something different.
And my worry was that there wasn't a story to be told that would feel like that this was actually the end of the story. And that was always my worry. And I think in order to try and make it so that there was an ending, they put in 3 trilogies worth of story into one movie to try and stick the landing, if you like, and because of that, for me, they didn't.
It's funny because I kind of agree with you guys, but I kind of don't at the same time, to where I don't necessarily feel like it was like 3 movies or 2 movies in one. It felt to me like there was just a lot of stuff in here that shouldn't have been the focus. It was just kind of mudding up the waters. Like, I was like, just get rid of that stuff and then focus on this stuff, and it would have been fine.
If some of the plot stuff, if they had a plan in mind, like, this is how we're going to end it roughly, so that there was certain things that you had to hit but do it in your own way within the second movie, it would have left more time to not have to cover those in the third movie, wouldn't you agree? And I'm not saying that's Rian Johnson's fault, because if he's not presented with a plan, if they don't turn around and say to him, this is the ending, I need you to hit these certain sort of points in it, but otherwise go for it. If they've just said, well, go for it and make a sequel to that, and we'll worry about the third part after that, then he's only doing what he's mandated to do at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about each of the potential FU Rian Johnson moments as they come along, and what we think was the purpose of explaining things the way that they did as they get there. But as always, I want to know about the opening crawl. Throughout most of Last Call podcasts, the opening crawl has always been something we just kind of laughed at, and nobody really has too much to say about it. I think this one, I I think this one definitely stands out from the others. It's not as forgettable. There's a lot of things that are in it. You know, the dead speak. The galaxy has heard a mysterious broadcast. You know, they're telling us that everybody is already tracking that the Emperor is still alive. They tell us that Rey is training. Not that she is already trained, but is training. Kylo Ren is on the hunt for the Emperor. There's a lot to it, more than past ones. I know, Brian, you had a pretty strong reaction to reading it ahead of time. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'd read it like a day before because I kept hearing that it was, you know, the movie hits the ground running, and everybody was talking about the crawl. So I read it, and I was like, that's insane. And in my theater, when that hit, especially the part about the emperor being alive and everything and his revenge, I heard people all around me start talking. Like, people were like, I heard something, what the hell? What? Like, it actually got the audience distracted. And I'd never seen that with a crawl before, where the audience was actively distracted because of and I could imagine if you weren't following, you know, the lead up to the film that much, you know, trailers and stuff, and seeing that crawl and just being like, well, did I miss a movie? Like, you know, then that was sort of the feeling. It almost feels like something happened that you weren't told or that you missed. Was I supposed to read a comic book or something? You know, I don't.
Yeah.
I will
James.
say. Oh, sorry. I wanted to piggyback off that, if that's okay.
Okay.
I know that's kind of what George Lucas wanted to do back in the day. You know, make it seem like you come in mid-episode of something, and we're just like, oh, did I miss something? And in that respect, I think the crawl was kind of cool. And I thought it was the most interesting crawl we've had, and I liked the fact that you had Kylo Ren, who says he hears the Emperor and he's like, nah, F that, I'm going to kill this guy because it's my power that I want. I like that, the sort of the table they set for this thing, where it's like you have the Resistance on one side, the First Order on another. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren is just like, okay, I gotta take this guy out because fuck him, I'm the supreme leader. And I really enjoyed that.
Okay. James?
I think the thing that had to go down with this was they needed all the real estate, right? So it's the first time where the crawl actually kind of matters. You're needing all that information because it's such a stuffed movie. So all the other ones I feel like you could watch with no crawl and still get the gist of what's going on. This one, you was being told like, all this crap happened, so prepare yourself. That's kind of how I felt about the whole movie, not just the crawl.
Okay. Jammer, did you have anything else to say?
No, I already piggybacked and said my piece, so.
Yeah. All right. Nick?
Yeah, I agree with both James and Jammer in that I agree that, like, the older movies, even the prequels, had that kind of feel where it's like, oh, the Emperor's been, it's been taken, and now there's an attack on Coruscant or whatever. And they both feel like you're hitting mid-chapter. The only exception being Return of the Jedi, which has to piggyback directly off of Empire. But at the same time, it is the most reliant film on the crawl, just like James said, where it's like, oh, here's what you need to know. But it definitely read more like an old school one. I kind of liked it.
Okay. Cam?
Well, I mean, I think they had to squeeze so much into this film again that they had to start it in the opening crawl. So, you know, that's how little time they had to bring in the story of the Emperor coming back. So for me, it was like, well, we need to get this in there right from the start, and then leading into the opening scenes. I actually think it's quite similar to the Revenge of the Sith in the way, you know, Revenge of the Sith starts war. Evil is everywhere, and this one was like the dead speaks. It was, you know, that, I don't know, it just reminded me of that when I saw it at first. But yeah, opening crawl, don't care. You know, that's my usual answer. You know, unless it's actually, you know, singing as a song in the opening crawl, I'm not going to complain too much.
Anybody got any follow-ups or last thoughts on the opening crawl?
I do agree with.
Oh, go ahead.
Are you still there? I do agree with what Jammer said, in that these are meant to be like you walked in on an adventure serial in the 30s or whatever, right? So like you're supposed to be like, oh, I haven't seen the last two serials. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the feeling they're meant to convey.
Yeah, I think this is the most successful.
Although, does
in
this
that
tell
regard.
you like what happened in The Last Jedi at all?
Well, because The Last Jedi in this scenario isn't the last one. It's like the feeling is that there was stuff in between that you missed.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, and that's one of the things I felt missing was from The Last Jedi, because of the way it just jumped from straight one into the other. You didn't have enough time for that, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, tried something new.
Yeah.
Well,
Was it just fan service?
that's about it for the crawls. Cam, get us started.
Yeah,
started,
so
man.
we're going basically through the opening scenes here at the end of the movie, which is basically just leading straight on from the opening crawl. Kylo Ren is killing some strange looking guys for some reason in order to get the Wayfinder. He gets the Wayfinder, he plugs it in his TIE fighter. He skips through that weird thing, I don't know what it is, but some weird thing that they can't seem to fly straight through.
The red looking storm.
Yeah, that thing. He arrives at Exegol, he goes in, he speaks to Palpatine for the first time, and he tells him that he's got this big fleet for him, and he'll give him it, and he'll make him the emperor of a new empire. All he has to do is kill that girl, that and we then go away, and Kylo Ren then sort of looks up, and then we kind of lead into what the heroes are doing then. So in terms of what I thought of that, I actually thought it was quite an exciting opening, because it was a little bit different from what we usually get. You usually get something that's a bit of a story set up, and then it's a little bit slower and it moves on. I quite like the fact that it started straight with the dark side, straight into it, and seeing the Emperor and everything like that. It kind of got the plot moving very, very quickly. I didn't really have any major issues with it. Brian, what about yourself? What about this whole opening sequence?
Yeah, I agree. It hit the ground running, and then it basically gave you everything you sort of needed to know to get through the next, act of the film. And so, yeah, and the look was cool. I like the slow motion. I like, Kylo Ren slaughtering everyone, and I like the look of the Emperor. I like, seeing that.
I must admit, I like the look of the Emperor. He didn't look exactly the same as he had before. It did look a little bit different, as if he was even older and more not quite there, etc. I did have a couple of issues with it, but we'll get to that anyway. Anything else to say on that, Brian?
No, that's it.
James?
So we're talking about the opening, right?
Yeah, so the opening, sort of basically the whole Kylo going down, meeting the Emperor for the first time, and then getting told to go and basically kill Rey.
I liked it. It got me pumped up, but the one thing that I thought was odd, I don't know if anybody else noticed this, was the fact that the audio was kind of cut out for that whole first battle.
I don't think that was
Anybody
weird.
else
I think that
notice
was
that?
a creative choice, because they were kind of focusing on him, and sort of like the sound in the background was going. I think that seemed like a
I think it
creative
was
choice.
to go
an
with the
intentional
slow
creative
motion,
choice.
wasn't it? Because they did it in slow motion, they took the sound away, I think deliberately, but
It just felt like we were hyper focusing on Kylo Ren to me, and not really on the actual hit. So it didn't feel off to me. It felt like it made sense, but I could watch it again and maybe.
It caught me off guard, I guess. I don't think any Star Wars has ever done that in terms of, just starting on like that kind of slow motion, like, no sound, echoey thing. But yeah, for the most part, I liked the opening. It was a good way to open it. I mean, jumping right into it was the only way to do it.
probably agree, yeah, that was the only way to do it. But Jammer, anything else you want to say about that opening sequence?
Shit.
That's all right. It happens.
Okay.
He's
Jammer?
No, you went out for like 5 seconds, so I just wanted to make sure.
All right.
But it's your turn.
Oh, it's my
Jim.
turn. I didn't hear anything
Yeah.
you said, so I didn't hear him call me. Okay.
Neither did I.
All right. What did I think? So I think, yeah, it was an interesting way to start. That we started off with him and his journey. I like the fight scene with him against all the village people, and then I enjoyed.
I'm just getting this image now. An Indian, a guy in a leather jacket and a moustache, and Kylo Ren slaughtering them all while they go, young man.
But also seeing the Emperor, I like the Emperor's weird blue teeth and white skin and kind of Voldemort look. I thought I was kind of okay with that. But also, I enjoyed the way that J.J. Abrams was filming the flickering, where it wasn't like just light flickering. It was literally like stop motion to where he would film him one way and then like change the lighting and then film another way and then change the lighting and film another way and then just basically just cycle through it so that it looked kind of jumpy and jerky and off.
It's like strobe lighting almost, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like at a disco or something where you're just seeing, you know, patches and then you don't notice that somebody's laughing at me saying disco. Am I showing my age here?
Yeah, and it helped to make
ties in the village people.
it helped to make the Emperor kind of freaky again, and I think that's very difficult to do. He felt different and threatening and unique and weird, and it was interesting. And I think we should give kudos to Abrams on that front, just sort of bringing in unique filmmaking strategies and sort of allowing or being able to sort of inject something different about someone we've seen twice already in past trilogies. So I think he was successful on that front, at least to begin with.
What about you, Nick? Opening scenes.
I'm gonna be the overanalyzer here because this is one of the only times we're gonna talk about this movie. Has anyone heard of a fucking holocron?
Yeah,
What the
I
fuck
brought
is this
that
device?
up on.
Yeah,
I brought that
agree.
up on LR
You
Mornings.
did, yeah. That
agree.
would have been better
That
to
looks
use
like
a
a holocron.
and just call it a holocron.
Just call it
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that, you know.
Wayfinder? What the hell
This
is
way they
that?
can sell Wayfinder toys. Nick.
Yeah, so you'll be.
but they
they're
haven't-
going to
Ryan
have a
would've called it a
wayfinder
holocron.
that'll have little puzzles on it that you can buy for your kid, or a little nightstand that's like a little nightlight that shows you the direction of the Emperor or something like that. I should be working in marketing, shouldn't I?
I mean, I can
That's all
understand
JJ.
J.J. Abrams' desire to make something that you could just say, "Oh, it's a Wayfinder," and people know what that is right away, not without having to explain, "Oh, it's a holocron."
That's
So,
true.
like, what's a
Wayfinder
holocron?
tells you
It's
what
just
it
a
is
different
in the
name.
name. But you then
What's
have
that?
to say this is a holocron that does this, whereas the name Wayfinder tells you it's something to find away, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, if he had just opened up the holocron and the map is within it, you know, there's the Emperor telling.
He opens it up and it's
you know,
like, "Go
is the
this way," and it has an arrow pointing.
That's basically what it does.
At the next galactic junction, please turn left.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I will
Continue,
say
Nick.
JJ does that,
All right,
doesn't
go
he?
ahead, James.
JJ does that. Like he takes things that we know are things in fandom, and he makes them like new
Yeah.
instead of just pulling from fandom. And I will argue that Ryan Johnson would have made it a holocron. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. And I
maybe.
think also
Maybe.
J.J. Abrams has a tendency to take something that could be potentially complicated and boil it down to its most core essence so that most people will understand it without much thought.
Yeah.
Keep
That's
going,
true.
Nick.
Oh, sorry, I
Overanalyze.
just got attacked by a cat. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, just even the you know, they're trying to tie all the Star Wars stuff together right now. Like they released the video game and Mandalorian, and the video game is full of fucking holocrons. It's like, why not just call this?
Yeah,
thing
that's
that?
what I
You don't have
mentioned to
explain
Kyle
it.
last night, that it's absolutely canon, you know, the term holocron these days, and you know, the young people out there, I think, understand the canon better than us old cats these days as well, because my son was explaining a few things to me last night after the movie that are canon now, and I'm like, what the fuck? Where did this stuff come from? Oh, this came from comic issue number blah blah blah. I'm like, fucking hell, there's no way I could keep up with this sort of stuff now.
And then I don't know, the Emperor. I don't. You don't want too much explanation or exposition in a movie like this, but it's super. I mean, I guess Star Wars is always super comic booky, but it's like, oh yeah, you threw me off a cliff, and look, I'm back.
Well, I mean,
it did look cool. I did like seeing the Snoke clones that were kind of laying.
They're called Snones.
I mean,
but at the same time, this started the retconning, and
yes,
I was already pissed.
I was
off.
hoping somebody would mention
I've
this.
been the voice in your head the
because,
entire time, which is
because
like
this scene did retcon so much of The Last Jedi and just those opening moments that it's unbelievable. It's like 40 seconds explained Snoke, why the Emperor was back, and the excuse for the Emperor being back is simply a line for the prequel trilogy. It's the dark side is a path to some abilities that many may find to be unnatural, which he said, and that's our explanation for how he come back. Boom, there it is. And Snoke, oh yeah, I created him there. You can see a few clones there.
And I'm like, how did you create Snones? Like, how did this happen? I don't understand. And it's fine. We didn't get an explanation. I'm like, all right, whatever. But it was, I kind of liked it because it was goofy and comic booky and Star Warsy in some ways. But at the same time, I'm like, I wanted a little bit more with the Snones. I actually didn't mind too much about the Emperor saying that line. I'm like, okay, I guess that works-ish. It's basically enough for me to just kind of wave it off and continue on. But it definitely felt lazy, and it definitely felt like, an unnecessary backpedal for The Last Jedi. It's like, did we really need you to say, I created Snoke or whatever? And I'm
every voice you've ever heard.
And I'm like, what does that mean, every voice you've ever heard? Does that mean you were this person? Does that mean you were? I don't get it.
He was the one that was influenced everything from. That's what they're trying to say. He's been the one pulling the strings right from the start. I think Leia even says that later. He's been pulling the strings right from the start. And that's what they were trying to kind of establish right away. It's been the Emperor the whole time. This was always the plan. And I just never felt like that at all. It just feels like, well, given what happens at the end, they needed a villain, and because Snoke was dead, they brought him back and thought, right, we'll explain this in the first few minutes of the movie. I just want to, because Kyle's not had his shot to say anything yet, but just before we go on to Kyle, I just want to ask one question. Looking back at it now, would it have been better if they had just used Snoke and he was some thing of all the Sith that had ever lived, and some weird thing in that place instead of the Emperor? Just a quick kind of round, would people have liked that better or worse? Brian?
Honestly, they could have gone both ways. I mean, and that shows that I don't think there was a plan. I really don't. I don't think that. If you told me, I think Abrams has said that Palpatine was always meant to be. Am I correct in that?
He said that. Yeah, he said that.
He said that, and Kathleen Kennedy said that, but then Colin Trevorrow totally threw them shade when he said in his version the Emperor wasn't involved at all. So therefore, the Emperor was not part of the plan until J.J. Abrams came back on board, and it was only then that he phoned personally to speak to Ian McDiarmid and said to him, look, we're thinking about bringing back the Emperor, would you be interested? And he's like, yeah, I'd be interested. And that was only like a year and a half ago that Ian McDiarmid got that first call based on the timeline from the video that he was doing when he spoke about that. Anybody else get any views on that Snoke Emperor? Would anybody have preferred it either way, or are you not bothered?
Snoke's dead, so it couldn't have been him, right? That's how I feel. It shouldn't have been Snoke at the end because he died. I mean, it should have been. I don't think it should have been either. I think it should have been someone else or something else, or maybe having to deal with Kylo Ren.
Okay, yeah.
I'll say my bit when it gets to my original turn.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. We'll just go to you then, unless anyone's got anything.
Nick, I know you had one last point, Nick, before me. What was your last point?
Well, I kind of already mentioned it, but I don't know how many people were talking at the time. The
retcon
retcon was so bad it felt like Spectre.
Yes,
Spider-Man 3. Where
Spectre.
it's like, I've been the instrument of your destruction, or like, oh, I shot Uncle Ben. It wasn't that other guy in the first movie. And it's like, why?
I like all of the aesthetics of the opening, just like you guys. I thought it was a good way to hit the ground running. And then they never stop running, of course. When we got to the exposition from the Emperor. I thought it was a good way to do it, even though some of the things explained I didn't like and I didn't buy. Like, that yes, this really was you the whole time. I like the fact that he created Snoke. I wish Snoke had. I'm glad that he didn't have some big in depth. That he wasn't Darth Bane or Darth Plagueis. I was fine with that because I've always liked that Snoke died in The Last Jedi. I wanted Kylo to be the big bad guy, and he wasn't.
That's what Colin Trevorrow was
Palpatine
doing.
Back
that
for
is what Colin Trevorrow was doing. He had apparently a civil war going within the First Order, with sort of between Hux and Kylo Ren, and then the Resistance on the other side.
Yeah. So I as far as openings go, I was actually kind of excited at the start because it seemed like he's looking to be the big bad guy. He wants to be, and not necessarily emperor. He wants to be the supreme leader of it all, and he wants to complete what he felt Vader should have done, which was bring order to the galaxy. And so I was excited about it. I felt that it set a tone for the retcons that we were going to get. I had talked to Jammer a couple times this week on LR Mornings that I thought most of the Last Jedi fixes, air quote fixes, were going to be soft fixes, and I felt that one was actually a really hard fix, but they really had a couple things they needed to focus on as far as the retconning. Well, one was Snoke, and the other being Rey's lineage, and they smartly went with going with Rey's lineage because to explain Snoke as anything more than a Sith creation would have taken up too much time, and this was already an overstuffed movie. So yeah, I would like to know what everybody immediate thought at that retcon going around the horn. That's Snoke retcon. What was your immediate thought on what it meant for the rest of the movie for you, Brian?
I was fine with it. I mean, I thought, yeah, this is how he's going to deal with it, and this will be this, and I was okay with it.
James?
I would just say, I think what Ryan did, and then trying to fix that for the fans is what caused, any of those plot holes that, you see, okay, well, how did he come back, and how did, well, it's like, of course they're not going to explain Snoke. Everybody was like, oh, I hate Snoke. You know what I mean? They're just going to say, oh, Snoke was a clone, and
I wouldn't say if
here's
people
your
hated
emperor.
Snoke. I think people liked Snoke by the end of the sort of Force Awakens. I think people didn't like him at first when they heard he was coming in, because they thought, well, it was like, well, who is this guy? Where did he come from? But people kind of liked the character after the Force Awakens. I think it was that people didn't like the fact that they killed him off, which depends on your opinion of that movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just it comes back to the thing of my general opinion of this is anything that's wrong with it is when they start to do fan service and the sappy pandering to fans because they were terrified to do anything else after The Last Jedi.
Yeah. Jammer, that particular retcon and the way that they did it, any issues? Did it make you want to walk out? Did it hurt you in your heart?
I mean, I'm not the type of person who says, "Oh, I want to walk out," because it goes against what I wanted.
Yeah.
So that's not me. But and it was goofy shit. I watched it, I was like, "That's weird." That's all right. We got Snones here, whatever. It sucks because, and I'm going to say this a lot. It's exactly what I feared Snoke would be, just a puppet of the Emperor. And I'm like, we all knew that when we saw him. Like, oh, he's probably a puppet of the Emperor. Oh, he probably is under the Emperor. And then when Ryan Johnson came along and said, nah, it's not. It's his own thing, and he's dead now. And I'm like, oh, well, that's unexpected. Cool. But then they go in and say, no, wait. He was a puppet all along, and he was a clone. I'm like, okay. Well, you basically did exactly what I feared. So that sucks. But, whatever. It's stupid, but whatever. I'll watch the whole movie and move on with my life. That's basically how I felt.
Nick?
I just feel like I like The Last Jedi, of course, because it does what Rian Johnson always does, even though he's trapped in this galaxy. It flips the script. Like they get rid of the throne room in the second movie, and I was like, oh, thank God, I don't want the same structure as Return of the Jedi. And then here we are with another fucking throne room ending scene. And it's like, give me something new. Anything.
Cam?
Well, we see what happens when they get something new.
I know.
Yeah. In Star Wars, at least.
Yeah.
For
Cam?
me, again, knew about this beforehand, and I have two conflicting emotions here, because one, I felt it was too quick, and I personally think keeping Snoke around would have been better, like that he wasn't really dead, he could come back, because he was just so fucking powerful. I would have maybe believed that more than the Emperor, and it would have appealed to me more because it wouldn't have demeaned the ending of Return of the Jedi as much if it was someone new. Or, as Jammer said, a brand new character, someone else that had been kind of, even more powerful waiting in the wings. But at the same time, I'm glad that they actually did give an explanation for Snoke, because to me it was a plot hole that didn't make sense with the whole Rule of Two and all the rules that they'd established in that universe up to that point. I never quite placed Snoke anywhere, and actually having him just be some puppety clone type thing of the Emperor works for that for me, because it doesn't sit or break any of the rules. So
I don't know.
Caught between the two of conflicting emotions with that one.
I think with nearly 30 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, why not have a Sith, or not even a Sith, just a Force user that's really, really powerful, see that he's got an opportunity to fill a power void and come up. I didn't need Snoke to have a big backstory, just like I didn't need, when I was a little kid, I didn't need Palpatine to have a big backstory. Sometimes I think the prequels giving Palpatine a backstory is why so many people wanted more information on Snoke. They don't remember what it was like for Empire and Jedi, where he was just he was just that. He was the Emperor. He very powerful Force user in the Emperor,
was
and we knew
episode
nothing
6.
else.
It was already episode 6, so we knew there was a 3-part. By the time Return of the Jedi comes around, it's called episode 6, and there's a first 3 parts. So that there's this entire trilogy of backstory there. You're intrigued by it because at this point they hadn't filmed it, but you would have expected to find out more about the Emperor and the turn of Vader, the friendship between him and Obi-Wan. There's all these kind of pieces that we then imagined in our heads ourselves almost, but we never had answers to. But they did make those 3 films, and although we all, I think, does anyone here love the prequels? It's doubtful. Because Seth isn't here. But it's not.
I do. I love
you
the
love
prequels.
them, James?
I love Star Wars.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, James likes.
I really
prequels.
like Star Wars.
Okay.
So I love the prequels.
Did you think they were well-made movies, like good dialogue, good script, all that, or do you just ignore that?
They had their faults.
Okay.
They had their faults. I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on Star Wars to be perfect, like the original trilogy was in a lot of people's eyes.
See, it depends how you look at it.
It's never going to be that.
I see if you look at it as just a popcorn flick, right? Which I think my son does, right? He looks at Star Wars, it's just popcorn stuff. He wants to see cool lightsaber battles, cool spaceship battles. But to me, the first trilogy of Star Wars, there was a deeper element to it than that. There was something that you enjoyed as a kid, but then when you come back to it as an adult, it had different layers in there that you could appreciate as a film buff as well, actual things that made them good films. I don't think that kind of stuff was there on the prequels. But anyway, I disagree with you there, Kyle, but that's nothing new.
James, go ahead.
So my thing is like, okay, we're talking about Snoke's backstory, and if he needed a backstory, it didn't need a backstory. With the prequels, you start out with the originals. You had no idea if he was going to do the prequels, so Emperor doesn't need a backstory. Then you tell the backstory. Over how long was it? Like 10 years. Like these 3 films come out.
Yep.
And you tell the backstory. Okay, now you're going to make sequels. Well, you have 6 films that are all telling a story that now all of a sudden this trilogy has to do something that no other trilogies had to do, and that's have all this encumbering history behind it. So of course people want to know, like, what happened, where did all these people come from within the last 30 years? Because like I seen 6 films and none of these people were in them. So like that's what the problem with the mystery box kind of sensibility to it. Unless you were ready to pay that off, you can't just set that up and walk away. So, and that's my major defense for Rian Johnson is he had nothing to work with. So he just tried to subvert in the best way he can and pivot in the best way he could have. So, okay, rant over. I'm not going to...
I said on The Last Jedi myself when we were talking about it, and I'm against The Last Jedi. I didn't really like it as a movie, but I felt a lot of the problems that were stuff he inherited from Abrams in the way that he decided to do a first movie and introduce so many things and yet keep so many things so similar to A New Hope. Anyway, Kyle.
Yeah. So let's move on a little bit. The Resistance gets information that they're going to about the fleet. There's this whole scene with Finn and Poe and Chewbacca doing some stuff to get information. They loaded up into R2D2. They get back to the Resistance camp. They argue with Rey, who's been training, and we get to see some cool stuff with Rey being trained by Leia. There's even I want to know specifically once we start going around the table. I can't remember if it's at this point in the film or later on when they're talking about the fleet and it's huge. Somebody asks, why don't we just do a holdo maneuver? And somebody says, well, that's like a 1 in a million type thing. We can't do that here. I want to know if anybody thought that was a purposeful FU to Rian Johnson and that maneuver in general, but we'll get there.
Yes.
You do.
I don't think it was. No, I think it was a purposeful thing. Okay, fans, there explained. You happy? That's basically what it was.
I think it was more of an
FU to fans.
This is why we can't just do this every time. Because a lot of fans remember afterwards are saying, why didn't they just do this all the time? Why didn't they blow up the Death Star with this? Why didn't they do this with this? And I think that was them saying, yeah, that was a one-off thing and we're not going to do that every time.
And let's be real, the Japanese did that in World War II and they still didn't win. Like, seriously, you can only kill yourself so many times before it's like...
That's the thing, you don't have to kill yourself, you put a fucking droid on it. That was... I don't mind the holdo maneuver, I just thought...
Who's going to decide what droid to go? Right,
but then, like, you
have to do it. Oh dear.
But then you destroy your resources. Like, you basically go through your resources really fast, and you can no longer you basically run out of ships.
Yes, you would, and that's why I thought it was actually the way that they explain it, that we can't do that. The fleet's too massive. And that's like a 1 in a million shot to destroy that much with one ship. But the question being is, was that particular bit an FU to the I'm not going to say any of these as an FU to Rian Johnson personally, but to the Last Jedi. So yes or just a quick yes or no from everyone. Brian?
I say yeah, and mostly because of some other scenes too. I think all combined, it felt like, I don't know if there's anger between the two, but clearly Abrams has some stuff to say regarding the last film.
James, was this an FU?
Yeah, absolutely was. The whole movie is.
Jammer?
No, it was more to fans than it was to Abrams. I think it was to placate them, not to FU Johnson. But that comes later.
Nick?
What Jammer said. This is not an FU. There were plenty of FUs later.
Yeah, okay. So Rey's training, Rey shows her to be very, very powerful. She's levitating herself, levitating a bunch of rocks, circling around her, and she's asking for somebody to come to her. I forget the exact words that she's using. She says that she can't contact them, or they won't come to her, or something like that. And we get some interactions with Leia. You can really tell that this is footage from the other films because of how little Leia is doing. It's a lot of standing, very little walking, and very not obscure. What's the word I'm looking for? Vague type dialogue from her. Mm-hmm. Mostly. So taking all of that up to Leia's from the guys getting the information on the droid all the way through them deciding to set off on this next mission because Rey's like, I know where to find information on Exegol.
Because she's read it in Luke's book.
Because she's read it in Luke's books. Your guys' take on that? I already pretty much gave my take. So, Brian?
Yet again, the movie was moving at such a brisk pace, and all this was done so quickly, which I didn't have a problem with. I was very curious to what they were going to do with the Leia stuff. You know, I knew they had a limited amount of footage. I think what they did with it was fine. Probably the best that they could do. But yeah, no, I thought it was fine. Maybe a little too. This goes into my whole. Maybe this should have been 2 films. Maybe we should have had 10 films to end the Skywalker saga. Rework this script and give certain things more room to breathe. But this would be definitely a sequence where that started. I started thinking that.
Definitely, James.
Yeah, it was fine. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of had to do that to show that, she was capable of going toe to toe with all these people. If not, you would have thought and I guess that again, that was a reaction to the whole thing of like, oh, she didn't train and she wasn't able to, which was a complaint of mine. She's been so strong since just the very beginning.
Yeah.
That it seemed off a little bit. So, showing her training, I don't know if it was earned that Leia could train her. It was kind of forced, but especially when it didn't seem like Leia had a whole bunch of training herself. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, there were hints of that in The Last Jedi, at least.
Well,
yeah.
There was that shot later in the film.
But again, we'll go back to our Last Jedi chat when Rey's lifting all the rocks. Leia's not helping her. She's,
Wait, are we talking about Rey or Leia?
We're talking about Leia, that the only thing Force-wise she seems to do in The Force Awakens of The Last Jedi is the floating through space thing and the connection, like the psychic connection with some of the characters. She doesn't do anything else that shows she's got a lot of training.
I can agree with James that at this point in the film, it doesn't seem like Leia, or at this point in the trilogy, it doesn't feel earned that Leia could actually train Rey. However, they do show later on in the film, we'll get to it, that Leia actually became a master herself through training with Luke. James, any other words on the hyperspace skipping or Rey's training all before they head off to that desert planet Pisana?
I think the fun, that was the funnest part. My kid sat up. I seen it twice. So seeing it a second time, my kid sitting up and pretending like he was flying the Falcon and all that. So that was probably the funnest part of the beginning. And hyperspace skipping is something like and them tracking them through hyperspace is something that the series has earned. Rogue One set it up, and Last Jedi paid it off, and now they're using that all the time. So I was like, wow, that's like a cool development. And they can do all these cool things now. Mm-hmm. So
very cool. Jammer.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun opening. I think this movie is at its strongest when it builds off of what was actually given before. And I know going into this, when I saw Finn doing his thing and actually being a willing participant in the Resistance, I was like, oh, this feels so nice. Like, it feels earned. Like, it feels like we had him leave the first story in the first one, then basically realize, oh, I actually should fight for something in the second one, and then now just being full in. So I liked seeing him be all in and being competent and fully interacting with Poe. And I think their interaction and chemistry works really well. It's fun. I like all their banter back and forth, and I love the hyperspace fight scene. I know at the end of it, I was like holding my breath because it was just sort of a fun, quick-paced way to start the story. So I thought that was great. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Leia stuff, yeah, I think I did fine with the Leia stuff because for me, I probably wouldn't have noticed initially unless I knew that she was dead. And then I know going into it, I was just like, ooh, how'd they do this? How did it turn out? Because then I was actually just paying active attention to it. So it's never going to be easy for me to look at it any other way. And you could always see the cracks in the armor if you do that. But, overall, I think they did an admirable job with that stuff. As far as her training, I thought that, yeah, they could have implied more. But I think something Star Wars fans don't do very well is they don't infer enough based on little hints. They need to be given everything a lot of times. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we didn't get enough of her training in the past, but at the same time, I don't think there's anything that fully discounted it. And I think we could fill in the blanks ourselves. We don't need to be spoon-fed everything. And I'm like, all right, sure, I'll accept that. I'll accept her having had some training references.
Okay, there we go. Nick?
Well, I think the pacing's kind of perfect. I didn't feel like it was too fast or anything. It's just, you want to get to the action. I love the light speed skipping, and wasn't part of the point of their training scene that it cut to, doesn't she lose her focus at the end? Like she does a lot later in the movie.
She kind of gets a bit angry at the point, frustrated. Because Ben's kind of connected to her, and she trips up and she gets all frustrated and, shows a little bit of anger towards that sort of training droid, doesn't she?
I do have just two words as to why it's not ridiculous that Rey is so powerful in the end of The Last Jedi. Baby Yoda, mic drop.
Well, Baby Yoda's 50 years old.
He's a fucking baby who has no training.
Yeah, but I have an issue with that as well. So
how do we know he has no training?
Because he's a baby.
He's a baby.
How do you train a fucking baby?
He's 50 years old.
Motherfucker could barely
he's been
walk.
In the same place for 50 years. He's just been in that little.
He can't even talk. He's not learned how to talk, but he's learned how to fucking do all this shit in the Force. Nah.
Well, I'm not sure talking necessarily is the first thing you have to do. I mean,
well,
are you
a
Yoda race?
When you're a baby,
are you a Yoda race, Cam?
What do you learn?
Do you know what it's like growing up as a green-headed, pointy?
You learn how to walk, then you learn how to talk.
That's humans.
Well, it's a fucking sentient species. Has it been brought up?
That is such a humanist point of view. You're such a humanist.
Is that a troll?
Such a humanist
point of view.
Human-centric. This is bullshit. You need to stop being so racist. And you're very human-centric.
Oh dear.
That's
all right. Cam, your
okay. Very
thoughts
quickly,
on
I think
scene.
they brought the retraining in simply because everyone had complained that she hadn't done any training. So like, well, we better give her some fucking training here. I think Leia training her is a good idea. That should have started back in episode 7, not now. Mm-hmm. She should have started training Rey in episode 7, even if Rey still goes to find Luke, because that's what Leia asks her to do. It should have started then. They should have had something brought in about Leia beforehand when they actually had Carrie Fisher to use. I know hindsight's a great thing. In terms of the Leia stuff, I'll always be more forgiving of that because they did the best with what they could. It's not their fault that this situation happened. It's a tragic thing. But they did the best they could, and so I forgive them for that. Like the light skipping bit, that was alright. Kind of found a way to get them away from from lightspeed tracking, which was pretty cool. I think, it was all pretty much okay, apart from the thing. I think the training was just a little bit too late in the series for me.
Yeah, wasn't it you that had mentioned how you wished Leia had been the trainer from the get-go
right
for
away.
Rey?
I think she should have started training Rey. We should have saw that Leia had Jedi training. I think J.J. Abrams just in The Force Awakens didn't really do enough with Leia for me. I felt that by that time, given the end of Return of the Jedi, there is another. You've got the same power as me. In time you'll learn to use it as arm. That Leia should have practically been a Jedi, even if she gave up that life. I know we talked about this in The Last Jedi with Jammer, me and you. It would have been fine if she chose a different life. She didn't want to devote her life to the Jedi the way Luke did, but I still think she could have started showing Rey the ways of the Force a little bit. Not in the second film, but in the first film, because in the second film, obviously, she wasn't really with Leia very much.
Yeah. Anybody have any follow-ups or questions to add for this part of the film?
I think I feel like there has to be a better visual way to do that opening scene with Rey, because the floating and the rocks looked like garbage. I feel like they could have used like real rocks and just like held them up by strings, and then I don't know. It just looked so fake, and it's fine. I really don't care that much, but it felt lazy. Like they should have done something a little bit more practical with that, because it just looks so CG.
I didn't like the spinning when she came down. I felt like that was a flourish for absolutely nothing more than to say, she's so powerful she can fly.
Yeah, it was almost
I just imagine her floating down and then doing the flip, and then Kyle going, "Oh, come on!" in the theater. And I'm just
yes,
such a small thing.
She should have just came down. I didn't mind her using telekinesis to keep herself afloat, but she should have just came straight down, landed nice and soft. That would have been fine.
There's also this power
but the spin
thing
was just
that I keep talking about as well. I think, but in 10 years' time in Star Wars films, we're going to have Jedi actually flying through the air, fighting each other, while they wield fucking fire bombs and lightning bombs at each other.
Dragon Balls.
Yeah, because they just keep increasing it all. And I think the old trilogy took the more Tolkien approach to it at making the magic subtle, that there's a cost to it and it can't be used all the time. And I think the best, and this is just a fantasy story set in space, I think the best fantasy stories don't go too all in on their magic, and in this, the Force is the magic, and I think they've just dialed it up to 11, and not just the sequel trilogy, but the Clone Wars, the comics, everything is just keeping dialing up the powers that they have too much for me.
I think the thing we have to keep in mind, though, is that the first three movies were very archetypal storytelling, and that's why they hold up so well, is because they're so universal. But with the other stuff, with the other movies, you can't basically rely on archetypal storytelling all the time. It just doesn't work once you start growing a franchise. That doesn't mean you need to make
people more and more powerful, though. I mean, you can
I'm saying my point is, there's a reason why they haven't been able to necessarily go back and do the same exact thing as the original trilogy. It's like the original trilogy spent that sort of archetypal source material, and they couldn't do it over and over again without people being like, this is the same shit over and over again. What's going on?
But that's exactly what I think. This was the same shit over and over again.
They ended up doing the same shit over
because
and over
fans.
Anyway.
Because
to me,
fans.
this is too much like Return of the Jedi. Oh well, so you bring in J.J. Abrams and he remakes A New Hope, then they bring him back to remake Return of the Jedi.
This doesn't feel like
Rian
Return
Johnson
of the Jedi
used a lot of
I think
Empire.
all he did was
did it opposite.
He just took the same beats as Empire and he switched them all around. He reversed them. So again, I don't think that was that original.
I don't know. If you take the same beats and you switch them all around, it's not the same beats. That's structurally different.
But then Abrams
Yeah,
does that a little bit as well. He takes
Col-
the same beats, but he changes them slightly so it doesn't look like he's plagiarised them. So if you to analyse them, you could say he could argue in a court of law, no, I did not steal that idea. I just reimagined it in a different way. It feels like somebody doing a history exam, and you know they've read a paper online and they can't write it exactly the same because they would get a fail for that. So, but they try and take the same points and put it all in different order so it looks like they come up with it themselves. But well, you know, on analysis you could say, oh well, okay, that's very much like this, but I'm going to have to give them a pass mark because they did get the main points. You know, that's what this trilogy feels like to me.
Well, unfortunately, we're talking about a movie that deals with war, and sometimes in war you lose people. James is going to have to leave our discussion, but don't worry, I'm going to have James answer the questions that we're all going to talk about at the very end, and I'll use the magic of editing to make him a part of the ending of the podcast. But thank you so much for your input, and thanks for the input, and if we're not able to get you to answer those questions, you know, shit happens, but we're gonna try to. But thanks for being a part of the podcast, James, and your input.
I appreciate you letting me on.
Yep. Alrighty then. Cam, if nobody else has anything about what we were just talking about, Cam, take us through the third desert planet that's not fucking Tatooine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I don't think it was a desert planet. I think they specifically said the desert of Pisana. So I think we're supposed to assume with this planet that it was a desert region of a planet, but not necessarily just a completely desert planet. As they're kind of flying into it, it didn't look like a Tatooine, just all one big ball of desert to me. But, you know, hey-ho. But anyway, yeah, the next scene that we're going to go through is obviously everything that happens at Pisana. So if you remember, they go in and there's that big festival going on and they're trying to find out information. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren discovers where Rey is by grabbing the thing off her neck, so he knows she's at Pisana, so they're now on a time slot. They find Lando Calrissian. He kind of gives them a little bit of information about Oki's ship. They go to Oki's ship. They don't find anything in it, but then they fall into the ground. They see the big snake creature thing, and Rey heals it, which is quite important for later on in the movie, and they do actually find the Sith dagger that they're looking for. 3PO then says he can't translate it. Not that he can't translate it, that he's not allowed to translate it. So they come up with another idea, and then as they're coming out, they're basically attacked by the Knights of Ren, Kylo Ren. Chewie gets captured. Ren and Rey have a toe-to-toe in the desert, and then they have a tussle over that ship, and in her frustration, anger, Rey shoots lightning out her fingers, which blows up the ship, and she thinks she's killed Chewie in the escape. So that's the kind of whole section that we're going to talk about here. For me, there's nothing here that I really disliked other than the fact of the healing ability being unlearned by Rey. I mean, I think back to if Obi-Wan had known how to do that healing thing, Qui-Gon would still be alive. If Luke had known how to do it, maybe Vader would still be alive. And you could go on and so forth throughout the series. So again, this kind of represents this power creep to me that, you know, they've introduced a new ability just because it serves the plot, and then they flung it into the Mandalorian as well, just at the right time. So that it wouldn't look as if Rey's the first person ever to know this, but yet Baby Yoda, who's never had any training, suddenly seems to know how to do this. But there's been no hint to Yoda, Mace Windu, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, Luke, Anakin, anybody else ever using this ability before. So that's my only kind of issues with this, really. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I like the whole sequence. I think the underground stuff actually sort of wanted more of that. I thought we were going to get more of that, sort of this almost tomb raiding type stuff, you know, getting this, you know, ancient dagger, and I like that she was able to sense the horrible things that it had done, and Sith language and all that stuff. I like that stuff in the worm creature thing. My only the last part of that sequence, from the moment Chewie is taken to Kylo popping in, all that, it just happens really quickly, and yet again, the beat of the films, go, 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 go. I guess we'll talk about it next, but I didn't see a point in the fake out.
Which fake out?
Chewie.
With Chewie. Yeah.
Dramatic tension, I guess.
Yeah.
It's lazy.
A few people.
It's supposed to make Rey doubt herself, isn't it? That's the purpose of it, is to make her question herself a little bit more. I agree with you. I'm not sure if that worked for me.
And to fear herself. I don't think she would have feared herself nearly as much if she hadn't thought she'd killed Chewie.
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, that was about it.
What about you, Jammer? This whole sequence?
I think I liked 3PO quite a bit in what we saw of him in this sequence. He had some great one-liners and was pretty funny, and I don't know. I liked him a lot, actually.
I'll just refer you back to what Kyle said about 3PO in the last two films. He was underused because he's a good comedy outsource. It's a natural thing that works within the universe. But character.
What I also enjoyed about the way they used him here is that it made sense why they would bring him along. Because it wasn't just like, oh, we have to use 3PO. It's like, oh no, there's actually a good reason why you would use 3PO for this particular mission. Because at first I was like, why are they bringing him along? But then I realized, oh yeah, he has the translation and stuff and the knife and all that. So I guess that makes sense. So I think they did a good job of justifying why he's here.
Well,
and
they hadn't found the knife by that point, but just even to translate to the locals would have been reason enough, to be fair.
Right. There's good reasons, translating and stuff. Do they know what they're looking for? I don't remember if they
No,
knew
they think they're looking for the
anything.
Wayfinder or a clue to the Wayfinder. So they don't know anything about the Sith dagger until she finds it in that cave.
Or that translations would be needed at all. They wouldn't even know that. Okay. So
other than translating local dialect.
3PO does have to translate the local dialect to them earlier than that, so they kind of put that in as an excuse for why we'd be there, I think. So I think that works okay.
Yeah, I think it works. I thought overall it was pretty fun. I was I remember when Chewie went to go look for Rey, and then you see him getting locked up. I'm like, God damn it, Chewie! What the fuck? You got caught so easily. That was a little frustrating. We never, and this is a spoiler, we never got to hear what the hell Finn was going to tell Rey.
We didn't.
When they were dying.
I could guess maybe, but yeah.
I know. But I wanted it to be something different than just what you would guess. I thought it would be
wait a
more
minute, what
interesting.
did you guess?
I don't know, something to do about, I really like you.
I think he's trying to say, which gets on to later in the film, that he thinks he's force sensitive, because I think they clearly are depicting that Finn is force sensitive in this movie. There's several things that happen at the end when he's talking about his feelings that you think, okay, Finn's actually force sensitive. And I wonder whether that was part of John Boyega saying that he wanted Finn to kind of do a little bit more in this. I don't know. I guess we're getting too far in that, because that doesn't really come into it till later on, but it's just when you brought up, that's what I'm thinking he was wanting to tell Rey about personally.
See, I didn't get that impression, to be honest.
Okay.
But yours makes more sense now in retrospect, but...
But, maybe ambiguous is okay in this situation.
Yeah.
Maybe. Nick...
Okay, I had no problems with this part. It's fine. I like the first half of the movie a lot more than the second.
Me too.
There's too many. I don't get the MacGuffins in this. So there's a Sith knife that just says where the Death Star has crashed.
Well, I don't think it does. It does say that on it. Yeah, actually, now that I remember. I think we'll get to that bit when we get to Endor, because I have some issues with that as well. But I think it's more when we get to Endor my issues are, so maybe we can talk about it a little bit more at that point.
And then, I think I know we've already had a lot of loss as fans of the original trilogy, but I thought it was bullshit that they would fake kill off characters in this movie twice. That really bugged me.
Who else did they... Oh, gotcha, they did, didn't they? Yeah.
3PO, and then he's
Did
fine.
any of you actually think Chewie was dead at this point?
No.
Yes, I'd hope they actually would do it.
I kind of did, but I'll say that when it's my
I mean,
turn.
I didn't. Okay, fine. I'll follow Kyle's lead on this one. Actually, no, I already said my thing. No, fuck it. I'm going now. So, I only didn't because Kevin Smith was like, they finally did right by Chewie, and I'm like, well, you can't do right by Chewie by blowing him up off screen. So
That's true. Yeah. Anything else,
Oh,
Nick?
that's what he was referring to. Okay. No, I'm good on this.
All
part.
right, Kyle.
I like everything. I looked weird at my wife when Rey heals the nope rope, the danger noodle, the snack. All funny names for snake. Jedi healing techniques existed in the EU, so again, I had no issue with it,
but never in the canon
wasn't-
of the movies or anything.
Right.
Until
And
Yeah.
and even not even that. We know that baby Yoda, as you guys want to call him, I like calling him Yoda Junior YJ.
stop trying to make fetch a thing, Kyle.
I'm trying to make it a thing.
It's
Goddamn.
gone. It's gone. It's Baby Yoda.
I know it's too late. But he was trying to heal the Mandalorian earlier. I haven't seen Wednesday's episode yet, but we know he was trying to heal the Mandalorian even earlier
right back in episode
the
3,
second
I think it
episode.
was, or was it second?
Second or third
Yeah.
episode, but for me, her healing wasn't that much of a big deal, but it was just how quickly she was able to heal him and how much. Like, I didn't like that. They should have had it be a smaller wound, and I would have bought it easier. I looked at Christine and I told her, Jedi can do that, but that's too much too fast.
But considering the wound she has to heal later on, that would be quite the jump if it was a little wound for that moment.
But there's more emotion in there at that point. There's more.
Yeah,
of her willing
and you
to
can
give
have it take a
herself
little
up
bit.
for it.
You could have it take a little longer. You could have it take
More effort
like a
from her,
physical
yeah.
toll on her.
To be
Show
fair,
a physical toll on her.
at this point, Rey has been training a lot more than Luke ever trained in the original trilogy. Maybe. Wait, no, it's a lie. Nope, that's not true at all.
No.
That's a lie.
Yeah,
For a second, I was thought, like, wait a second. He also trained before Return of the Jedi, so never mind.
Yeah, he had also had that,
so-
which was a couple of years at least set between Empire and Jedi, where he was off on his own, just reading books in Ben's hut and learning, and he built his own lightsaber and all that sort of stuff.
yeah. So,
Can I interject real
didn't-
quick? I'm sorry. We also have to remember she had those books, all those books, and I mean, we could make an assumption that they had, healing techniques and all kind of lost.
And she's got the
stuff.
Palpatine
like
blood
I said-
flowing through her
said,
veins.
I have no issue with her healing. It was just the size of the wound and how quickly. I found a lot of the stuff going on here once they get on that planet. I wish the line to the Sith dagger would have been a little bit more straight, but then you wouldn't have been able to get Lando in the way that they did. You wouldn't have been able to get they see the ship, the sinking, and then going around. I felt like this was an area where they could have cleared up some clutter and gotten to the clue a little bit faster, and then have all the danger afterwards. I didn't need the speeder chase and they fly now. Hey, they fly now. I didn't need all that. I figured they could clear up some clutter here. And when Chewie was expected to die, I actually thought they were going to do it. I hadn't listened or read what Kevin Smith had to say. I went into this movie a blank slate, other than my own ideas and theories that I had come up with, trying to think of things that they could do. I looked at Christine and I said, almost quote, and they got rid of the EU because they didn't like that Chewie was dead. That's what I told her. That was one of the reasons they said that they didn't want to use the EU, was Chewie was dead in it. And so the fact that it was a fake out, I'm okay with, and it does pay off later and gives me. I'll go on my feelings on that. Chewie's big payoff here soon, actually. So, yeah, that's my take on this scene. It could have decluttered some stuff, and the healing should have been a little less, and it would have made the healing later on more emotional.
Just one little point before we move on I wanted to use, because I'd seen the leaks, I knew about the healing ability. I knew it'd be a little bit controversial, and from that early episode of Mando where he goes to try and heal him, I knew that's what way they were going with this. And when they announced the episode was going to be a little bit earlier because of the I knew they were going to, and I've not even seen it, and I was not surprised at all to hear that Yoda, little baby Yoda heals in it, because I think from my point of view they'd been setting this up all along, and I don't particularly like it. I just wanted to ask one more thing as well, because we kind of skipped it, but did anyone else think the relationship between Poe and Rey was a little bit forced, where they had this kind of Han and Leia and Empire type of thing going on, where they were at each other, antagonistic?
I like that.
Yes. I thought it was really weird.
I thought it was a bit weird.
Manufactured. Yeah, and even creepy, because she's not like, there's not really a relationship or flirtiness to it. It's just him kind of being a dick.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst part of Han Solo from Empire.
Yeah, I mean, Han and Leia always had that relationship. It's part of what they liked about each other. You know, they loved that combativeness of each other. It was part of what attracted them to one another. And I wondered almost if they were going to go down a romance route between the two of them because of this. At that point, I thought, are they doing this? Is that why they're doing it? But they never went anywhere with that, obviously. But now in hindsight, I think it was a bit weird.
I'll just point out one more time that, and this was my biggest issue with his character in The Last Jedi. He originally wasn't supposed to survive the TIE fighter crash on Jakku. He wasn't supposed to be a character to go through all three films. I do think he had better use in this one than in the Last Jedi, and so I'm I feel his being alive here is better used. But I still think everything could have been better if they had killed him off in the Force Awakens.
Totally disagree. 100 million%. But whatever. Regardless of that, we already talked about that in the Last Jedi discussion. But as far as that weirdness, I didn't think it was that weird, because they've, like I said, there's been a time skip. There's been a year or so that we haven't seen anything, and in that time they've worked together, they've interacted, they've created a relationship. Like, I don't think that's weird at all.
Doesn't seem to be a very friendly relationship then.
No, I mean, not everyone gets along. It is what it is. Like, he's frustrated that he needs her out on the battlefield and she's back here training. He doesn't necessarily see the inherent value in it. He doesn't fully trust it because he's unfamiliar with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I don't think you need to have everyone to be super friendly and, super nice to each other all the time, and just because they're antagonistic to each other doesn't necessarily mean they have to be, a romantic interest either.
I don't know, it just felt super J.J. Abrams forced.
Yeah, I could see that.
They would put the exact same relationship in. Like, Poe is Han Solo
in this film, I think, they try to make him Han Solo in this film. Yeah.
Brian, did you have any say on that?
Not really, but I do agree, especially with what we learned later. This film, they were trying to make him Han, where I didn't feel that so much in the last two.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Because he wasn't supposed to be alive.
Oh, no.
Anyways, I think we're coming up on Kajimi is the way to pronounce it, right? 3PO there. Once they find the Sith dagger, he says that he cannot translate. It's against his programming, and it's programming that was given to him by possibly because there was a rule from the old Republic government on droids not being able to do Sith stuff. And so they go. They figure out there's this person on Kijimi that can bypass that, but it might cause him Babu Frick, yeah. But it might erase all of Chewie's memories, and they meet Zori there. God, I only what is the actress's name?
Carrie Russell.
Carrie Russell. I always just want to call her Felicity. I never watched the show, but that's all I know her
I mean,
from.
I think we can all agree that Zori was the best character they've ever introduced to Star Wars, and Carrie Russell really got a lot of screen time in this film.
I will say that she's the new character that got the most story. You know, there's a nice little moment I'm sure we'll talk about with Jana and Finn, but Zori's like I was curious about more about Zori and Poe, but what some really cool stuff does happen here. 3PO does get his memory erased, and but is able to translate exactly what they need from the Sith dagger, and that's where we get that real nice looking at my friends one last time. I thought they would keep him memory blanked throughout the whole film. I really did.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure how I feel the fact that he does later on get his partial memory back. He makes a joke about R2's memory backups not always being the best and reliable. One of the coolest things here is the lightsaber battle between Rey and Kylo Ren. That connection that Snoke, i.e. Palpatine, had built into them, it's even beyond things. They touched on it back on Pisana when he grabs the beads off of her neck, and this new force ability where they can actually connect physically and affect each other's individual location while being in separate locations. It's really well choreographed lightsaber battle with a lot of heart and anger in it, and the taunting from Kylo here. You know, he tells her that he's next time she'll take his hand. Or he might have said that leading up to Pisana, but I think that's an important thing to say. That, you know, I know who your parents are, and you know some things, you just don't want to admit it. And I think we do get the revelation that she's the Palpatine. Yeah, because it's right before she jumps off the ship. So yeah, we have all that stuff goes on. Cool lightsaber battle. Rey finds out she's a Palpatine after Kylo gets back to his ship, because he figures out that's where she is when he sees the Vader mask on Kijimi, and they escape thanks to General Hux. I figured he was the spy from the get-go because of his hatred of Kylo Ren, and I liked that they kept it just that. He's like, I don't give a fuck if you guys win. I just want Kylo to lose. So there's a lot going on there. Those are my feelings on each of it. Brian, your take from landing on Kijimi to Rey's revelation and escape.
That's a lot.
It has a lot of shit. It's like 40 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. I like the little puppet guy.
Yeah, what's his name again?
Babu Frick.
Babu Frick.
Yeah. My theater absolutely loved him. They were,
funny.
Crazy for him. The 3PO stuff, I was conflicted on whether or not I wanted that to stay. It really didn't matter. I do love the fact that, R2 has a backup.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. But as far as, do you think the whole backstory about Poe sort of being a smuggler and everything, that's what I was talking about when all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, he's basically Han Solo now.
Yeah.
Spicer or whatever.
Yeah.
Spice Runner.
And I thought that was intentional. The fact that they specifically said Spice was a reference to the fact that he's going to be in Dune. I thought that might be an Easter egg.
Maybe that'd be. I mean, probably, but I think it's fun.
That's a little bit too meta for me.
Yeah, that'd be very
I think
meta.
it's just the fact that he's trying to say he's like Han Solo, and we know Han Solo ran Spice, didn't he? So
Yeah. So I thought that was cool. The lightsaber battle was really cool. Like you said, the way they choreographed it, the edits there were really nice. As far as the Palpatine revelation, I'm not sure if that was always meant to be. I do think that Abrams always intended her to have some kind of important lineage. Whether or not it was Palpatine or not, I'm not sure. Johnson was the one that was, getting rid of that. So it's possible that was always somewhat in the plans. I don't know. That I'm unsure of. I don't know. What do y'all think about that specifically?
About the Palpatine reveal?
Was it always? Did Abrams always intend for her to have an important lineage?
An important, yes, but Emperor Palpatine, maybe not. I think he's very much a person who was like, I'll set it up and figure it out later, and I think that's what he did with this one. And then he was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going this direction.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk. I want to talk a little bit more about the Palpatine revelation in depth after we go around and get everybody's just initial take on this scene, the whole Kajimi and escape bit. So, Brian, that's it for you. James is no longer with us. So Jammer.
So I liked a lot about this whole thing. I definitely kind of got like an Indiana Jones vibe for this section of the movie because they were just going from place to place in search of basically an artifact and information and stuff. And I thought it was fun. Like it just felt like a nice, fun, swashbuckling adventure for a while. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. I liked the Spice Runner joke. I actually didn't make the connection with Han Solo at all, but I just thought it was funny the way they revealed it, where he's like, you were a stormtrooper? You were a scavenger? We could do this all day.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was really funny. And I can imagine you guys probably didn't like it because you guys don't like jokes in Star Wars. But I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It was fine.
I'm kidding. But I just thought it was a really funny moment. And I like that sort of back and forth antagonistic banter between main characters. I think that's a personal thing that I just like that type of stuff because that's how people are. A lot of times, or at least in my experience, that's how friends or people who are really close to each other, who are in close proximity constantly are, where they just cut through the bullshit and are just immediately antagonistic towards each other. So I enjoy that stuff. The Force talk evolution. This goes along with what I said earlier, where the movie is at its best when it builds off of what Rian Johnson brought into the franchise rather than undoing it. And he built wonderfully off of the Force talk stuff where, we got hints that, water sprays Rey or sprays Kylo Ren when they were in the Force talk conversation in The Last Jedi. And here, they had the bead situation earlier. And then they had this whole fight scene. And they use it so wonderfully when they cut down the head of Darth Vader. And then he's like, oh, so that's where you are. That was this one, right? That was this moment?
Yeah.
He's like, so that's where you are. And I was like, oh, fucking applause. Good job, J.J. Abrams. That is how you pay off something like this. This is how you build on what came before. And it makes me a little bit more annoyed that he didn't do more of that and did more backpedaling. Because as we saw, I think we all agree that aspect of this movie was really fucking strong. Just the building off of that Force talk sensibility or that Force talk skill and ability. And I wish there was more stuff like that. I really enjoyed that. I like Hux being a spy. I actually didn't see it coming, but I also usually not trying to anticipate things coming. So when he said, I'm the spy, I'm like, oh yeah. Like I knew he was going to save them when he says, I'll take it from here, or when he was there in general, but I didn't think, oh, he's the spy, because I had completely forgotten there was a spy before, to be honest. So when he said he was a spy, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense, and he probably does it because he hates Kylo Ren, which he confirmed. And I like that Finn shot him in the leg when he said to shoot him in the arm. And
Yes.
I like the fact that Pride killed him anyway because he's like, yeah, I'm not fucking stupid. Clearly, you're the spy. So I liked a lot of stuff that happened here. I was a bit sad that Hux died because I really liked him. I thought he was fun. I liked how just bitter and petty he was. And it was sad to see him go, but I think it was the right thing to do. So a lot of great stuff in this section for me. And I also like Kerry Russell's character. What little we saw of her, like I didn't have a problem with her at all. Yeah, I thought it worked overall.
Very cool. Nick?
Okay, I have a question because I had to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
During the movie, not during
Oh, okay.
where did the little droid come from?
Well,
they find it on the Jedi Hunter,
ship.
the Sith ship. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and
BB-8 plugs in and fucks it
powers
alive.
it up, and Rey puts some oil in it, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say this. I was worried when they said BB-8 was going to have a companion. I was very, very worried because they were adding Janna, they were adding Zori, and the Knights of Ren were coming. Like all this stuff being way too full. I was very worried about this droid. But they used him fine. I like his use. I think he was used well, and
it's funny because I actually didn't like him that. Like I liked the little droid. I thought it was cute and fun or whatever. But for me, it was the most I've ever felt that they made him for toys than I've ever felt anyone else, because he didn't really do anything incredibly special. Like there was no moment where I'm like, oh, so that's why you're around.
Do you know who does the voice for
something
Peel?
extra. Who?
J.J. Abrams.
Oh, okay.
Oh, great.
I will say this, a call back from an earlier episode of LR Mornings, Jammer talking about leaning into stuff before Nick gets to finish up his take. I agreed with you 100% that we should have leaned into things instead of spending time retconning.
Yeah.
And I think spending time retconning hurt this film.
Yeah.
And that you could have leaned into what The Last Jedi did and had some cool stuff and movies connected, because now we truly have 3 separate films. But anyways, go ahead, Nick.
Okay, there's my thoughts on that section. I agree with a lot of the stuff you guys said. Lightsaber battle, awesome. Like the Knights of Ren still look intimidating at this point in the movie, but they haven't done anything. Like I felt the Hux thing didn't work at all because of the acting. It felt like a British comedy suddenly, where it was just like, "Oh, hey guys."
That's just every time
I've been
Hux is
good
in
the
the
whole time.
movies for me. So
It felt wasted. I don't know. It wasn't a bad twist. It was just done very poorly. And then I guess Star Wars. I guess there is no cold of space because she's jumping to Finn, who's outside the Millennium Falcon with just a face mask and nothing else.
That's
So I guess
on
space
a
works the
planet.
same as
She's-
Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's like an atmosphere,
She's in the
isn't it?
MagCon field. She's in the MagCon field at first. That's why she's.
Because Finn's standing on the runway
no.
with just one of those facial masks from like inside the worm thing, like no skin
right.
protection from space.
Right. It's. You could say he's close enough to the atmosphere of the Falcon. I mean,
I thought they
there's
were
some
actually
suspension
still
of
in the
belief there.
atmosphere of the planet at that point. The Star Destroyer wasn't
That's a
actually in
possibility.
space. It was because
Yeah.
you can see the world below
That's
rather
true.
than
The
seeing
city.
a planet below, as if
You
they're-
can see the
Yeah.
city. Yep.
So I think
Yep.
they're still in atmosphere.
That
at that
answers
point.
it perfectly. And the altitude is why he needs a breath mask. But she's just doing a quick force jump and can hold her breath.
Okay, and then the other
I buy it.
before we get on, I know Kyle saw us speak, and then we're gonna save the pulp reveal. But what's the guy who kills Hux's name again? Yeah,
Pride.
character?
General Pride.
General Pride.
He feels 100% like Count Dooku or General Grievous,
Does he?
where it's like, oh, we just need to find a guy really quick that we haven't introduced yet because we have no villains left because we kill everyone and we have no plan.
Gotcha.
Doesn't the Emperor even later refer to like him serving for him like during
Yeah.
the original trilogy? And it's like,
Yes.
okay, why
The
not use
old war.
someone we've seen? Like it's a stupid
Well,
reference.
who would they
that means
use?
Nothing.
Who would they use from the original
exactly
trilogy?
because
Didn't
just
Piet
stupid.
Admiral
survive?
Piet survived, and he's been
Did he-
fucking cloned
Yeah.
by the Emperor.
Is the actor alive?
I have
Probably,
no
but you can't
idea.
use Admiral Piet. He is dead.
Oh, is he? You just said he wasn't dead.
No, I was
did he die?
kidding on.
No,
Like
he did
they
the
had come back.
Dawn.
Like,
But I
the Emperor.
actually like the fact that they had someone who had served the Emperor back in the day. I thought that was kind of cool. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, but
I just assumed
I think
he
we
was
just give it
he was somehow a part of that Sith fleet and they had come together at that point, you know. So he was asserting his dominance over Hux.
I like Nick's idea. Somebody did not get force choked by Vader. Somebody who had a name had to have survived, and I kind of like the idea of using them instead of a new character. So I agree with you, Nick.
Well, just like I said, it just feels like Grievous or Dooku, where it's like, oh well, they used up Darth Maul. Now what are they gonna do? It's like he used up Phasma and Hux. Now let's introduce a brand new character we get to know for 10 minutes. Who's supposedly super important, but really has no story whatsoever. Ugh. That's all.
Okay, Cam.
Okay, so there's a lot I don't like in this scene. Specifically the Zori thing. So Zori turns up. She's holding a gun to his head. She's got all these people round about her. Clearly, you know,
you're right.
They're ready to kind of shoot. And then Rey kicks all their asses. They're all down in the ground. She concentrates on that one and then says, come up, do you want to come with me? And then next minute Zori's just abandoned all her crew. So they wake up later on and they're knocked out. They're like, where the fuck did Zori go? I don't know. They must have kidnapped her or some shit. And Zori's just fucking... She's joined Team Skywalker at this point and she's like, doo-doo-doo, I'll help you. That never felt very natural to me. I didn't like Zori at all. I thought she was a poor addition to the film just to try and give some sort of little bit of comedy and backstory to Poe Dameron. I think she was pointless to me. For somebody that appears in the poster, I just didn't get it.
Well, I mean, you're forgetting that
with them and joined up with them after that, then I would.
You're forgetting with that weird alien creature that somehow got on a poster somehow.
Oh yeah.
How the fuck did that guy get on the poster? Who did he fuck to get on there?
Yeah, all he did was go blah, 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 in the Millennium Falcon at one point. Jesus Christ.
No, but you're absolutely right, Cam. Like, as far as like, I don't mind the character, but you're right. There was definitely a leap in logic on several ways. Like, first of all, she went from incredibly antagonistic to "I'm in love with you" again very quickly, and then also she joined the Resistance pretty quickly after everything. So like, it was just a lot of too much.
Yeah.
Too much too quickly.
And really she's just there to give them the MacGuffin of being able to get onto the ship without being detected. That's her real purpose there. And then they thought, well, we can't have her just for that one scene, so we need to bring her back later on as well. That's what it felt like to me.
Oh yeah, how do they use that captain's badge again?
Well, it just basically makes them think it's an Imperial trying to get on, you know?
Yeah, it's like a transponder.
Oh, okay.
But I really did enjoy the Force back and forth. Again, it was the one aspect I really liked about The Last Jedi. I thought it was inventive, new, and I always liked those moments in The Last Jedi were always good to me. So the lightsaber fight using that, and again, like you, Jammer, with the helmet, and I'm discovering where she was. Yeah, that all worked for me, but I just didn't really like Zori very much. And the kind of ground stuff, to be honest with you, that I just thought she was.
I mean, I can't argue with anything you're
saying.
saying. You're saying a lot of very correct things, like understandable criticisms. Like, yeah, it's messy. That's what describes this movie. Like, for me, it worked because I suspend my disbelief, but it's messy. It's very messy.
But that's it. That's about all I've got to say really on that. And other than what we're about to go on to, which is the Palpatine revelation. So Kyle, I'll let you lead that.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of part one of our discussion. We're going to pick up the Palpatine talk right on part two of this podcast, splitting it in half because we still got a lot to cover, just like we had to do with The Last Jedi. So thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you check out part two immediately. It's out now. I'm publishing these simultaneously. Make sure you check out the website, lrmonline.com. Make sure you subscribe to this LRM Online Podcast Network, and we have a wonderful YouTube channel full of stuff. Make sure you listen to part two, and you'll get everybody else's individual plugs. And yeah, it's been a fun discussion, everybody, so far, right? You ready to keep going?
I'm ready to keep going. Let's do this shit.
Alrighty. Well, once we come back, we will be talking the big Palpatine reveal.